What is it that truly terrifies us about the dark? It's not the absence of light, but the presence of a simulated normality. As an expert in forensic psychology, I can tell you this: real danger doesn't scream. Real danger watches in silence, hidden behind a perfectly fitted mask of sanity. Today, we're going to dissect the psychological architecture of Jeffrey Dahmer, not from the superficial narrative of crime, but from the depth of his pathology. We're going to explore how a predator is constructed when the foundations of identity collapse. Welcome to a clinical analysis of the erosion of the human soul. To understand Dahmer's origin, we must move away from the cliché of the monster and enter the concept of disorganized attachment trauma. In his childhood, there wasn't just inconsistent emotional signaling, there was a collapse in the formation of the self. In other words, Jeffrey never built a stable identity because he never had a secure reflection in his parents. He was a building without foundations. When the primary caregiver is a source of anxiety instead of safety, the child develops structural dissociation. This means the mind splits into isolated compartments to avoid pain, allowing the person to function in the real world while a darker part grows in isolation. His fascination with taxidermy and animal dissection wasn't biological curiosity, it was a projection of his internal annihilation. By possessing the physical structure of a dead animal, Jeffrey attempted to capture the permanence he couldn't find in human relationships. For him, abandonment wasn't a fear, it was a biological certainty he tried to reverse by immobilizing others. Essentially, because he feared people would leave, he preferred to turn living beings into objects that could neither move nor abandon him. If we analyze his neurobiology, we enter the realm of emotional hyporeactivity. In a neurotypical brain, the limbic system processes others' pain and generates an instinctive aversion. In Jeffrey's case, we observe a severe dysfunction in the connectivity between the amygdala and the ventromedial prefrontal cortex. This means the wiring connecting his emotional center to his control center was effectively broken. He could see suffering, but his body didn't receive the chemical signal that it was wrong. This disconnection leads to what we call primary psychopathy. It's not that Jeffrey didn't know his actions were legally wrong, it's that his brain lacked the hardware necessary to feel guilt or remorse. His pursuit of necrophilia and cannibalism were desperate attempts of introjection. In other words, he was so empty inside that he believed the only way to keep someone forever was to literally consume them or integrate them into his body so they could become part of him. It was an extreme paraphilia born from an absolute ontological void. Dahmer operated in a state of emotional numbness, where the only way to feel a spike of dopamine was through extreme transgression. His mask of normality wasn't a sophisticated disguise, it was an empty shell. He was a social corpse who needed real death to simulate being alive. What can we learn from this clinical abyss? The most important forensic lesson is the detection of affective flattening. In everyday life, we often confuse shyness with a lack of emotional resonance. Resonance is the ability to vibrate with another person. If you laugh, I smile. If someone never reacts to your emotional state, their internal mirror is broken. Empathy cannot be faked forever. Its absence leaves behind a trace of coldness that our instincts are often able to detect. Do not ignore that feeling of unreality when interacting with someone. Your nervous system detects the absence of humanity before your logic can process it. Jeffrey Dahmer was the result of a tragic convergence between a deficient biology and an environment that failed to contain his fragmentation. But analyzing his shadow gives us light, Understanding psychopathy allows us to recognize the critical importance of early mental health. True prevention begins with conscious observation. Remember, knowledge of the shadow is what allows us to walk safely in the light. If this deep analysis helped you better understand the mysteries of the mind, don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss future profiles. Leave a like if you value this scientific and professional approach, and comment below. Have you ever felt that inexplicable coldness in a conversation, as if you were speaking to someone who wasn't really there? I'll read you. See you in the next step towards your real well-being.